received it, did you?
Dr. H is wound today.
Hey, everybody.
Hey!
Those of you who are streaming, you're catching the tail end of a fascinating conversation about being a professor. But anyway, welcome to Leadership Conversations. This is the show where we explore the application of leadership within a world that matters to you. Today, we have a full complement of folks who are on the conversations today. We got Dr. Phillip Foster, Dr. Latanya Hughes, and Dr. Blanche Wallace. Before we jump into the conversation today, I'm going to allow everyone to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into our topic today, which is creating a coalition of leaders. And I think, considering the different things that are going on, and the funny thing is, guys, we've been back on our regular schedule the past month and a half, 2 months. And it's been fascinating that these topics have correlated tremendously to what's happening in the political sphere. So I'm finding that connecting point interesting, but certainly we'll probably get into some of that too. But Blanche, we'll start with you since you're our special guest for today. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, and thank you for welcoming me to this meeting. I am looking forward to examining the topic of creating a coalition of leaders. Again, I'm Dr. Blanche Wallace, and what I would like to leave with you is the fact that I focus on social intelligence skill sets and development of these skill sets and how important they are to helping us effectively manage our relationships.
Awesome. Latanya?
Hi, everybody. Y'all know me by now. I'm being real country today because I'm it's Dr. Foster's fault. But I'm the global mentor coach, and I'm the authority in global business dynamics, and I focus primarily on mentoring and coaching people to effectively influence society to flourish, prosper, and uphold moral character. And so y'all know I love talking about leadership. So when I saw this topic, I was like, it's gonna be good. So, yeah.
Oh my.
Dr. Foster?
Oh man, and I have to follow that. Hey. Oh my goodness. All right, Dr. H, you're awesome. So I'm Dr. Foster, and I am the consultant with Maximum Change Consulting, and I am an author and international speaker. My focus is particularly on the 21st century workforce and the future of work. And I'm noted as an author of the Open Organization, which explores the idea of the new century of work. So that's who I am, and that's what I do. And I'm really excited to be here to speak on the topic of coalition of leaders today.
Hey, and I'm Dr. William Clark here, one of the regulars of this show. I specialize in self and personal leadership. I also specialize in nonprofit sustainability and innovation. Fresh off of the heels of the Emerging Leaders Conference, which was almost 2 weeks ago. For those of you in the New England area who attended, thank you. We had an awesome learning experience, and there were some interesting takeaways that I took from that conference, guys. So, perhaps sometime we can just debrief in Latanya. Definitely got to catch up on that. And also, fresh off the heels of lecturing at the Nonprofit Talent and Culture Summit in DC, which was very fascinating. So kudos to the folks, Nonprofit HR, who put on that conference, had a great time there. So we're talking about creating a coalition of leaders. And at the time when I picked this topic to talk about, I really was not thinking about what's going on in our political sphere, but it just so happened that last week we conducted an airstrike in Syria. And it was done alone, without any partner involvement. And it's fascinating. Now we're talking about coalition of leaders. And for those of you watching this particular show, I really want you to draw away some key lessons that you can learn about why it's important to have a coalition of leaders, and why, if you're practicing this, doing things by yourself is not effective. So to get us started, Blanche, we're going to open it up with you. Let's kind of get this conversation going. What's the purpose and value of building a coalition of leaders? What have you learned over your years, and what are you seeing in the marketplace?
So first of all, to address that, I always like to define a word. I love words. And so when I looked at the topic today, creating a coalition of leaders, the first question that came to my mind is exactly what is a coalition? And so a coalition is an alliance to create combined action. And then after you define what a coalition is, then you want to look at the purpose. Well, what's the purpose of a coalition? So the purpose of a coalition is to form together a team for a specific purpose. Now, the benefit of doing this is because then you draw upon the expertise, the knowledge, the talents of other resources and skill sets. The reason this is important is because then it helps you to make a more informed decision, because you have diverse resources to draw upon to provide you with input. Did something happen, or was it just William? You guys can still see me and hear me?
Yeah, actually I can. It's probably Dr. Clark. He's going in and out today, but yeah, just keep going. It's okay.
Okay, and so one of the reasons that a coalition is formed in the first place is to, as I said, to collect information to make a more informed decision. So then you go from examining the word coalition to leadership. So then what is leadership? We can all define that in so many different ways. Leadership is simply the act of leading, of initiated action. But what you want to make sure that you're doing is you want to make sure that the action that you're initiating is appropriate and relevant. So when we turn to current events and we look at the decisions behind the attack upon Syria and the fact that it was made in a silo without looking upon the horizon and seeing what other people are saying and gathering their perspectives and then getting their support to make this decision from a silo effect, then causes the weight of that decision to rest upon the United States. Okay, so then internally, when we become aware of what happened, we're filled with questions and we're asking, well, how did we get to this point in the first place? So then the media tells us that our president made this decision based upon a conversation with his daughter. So then the question becomes, is his daughter a world leader? And why is this influence so significant? And then when we step outside the realm of the United States, how is this action and the motivation perceived internationally?
So, I think it's good to piggyback on what you said real quick. One of the things Ms. Ivanka Trump in place or positioned to do, she is actually an advisor to him. I think it's important to have more than one, though. I think it kind of crosses the bounds of nepotism and how we view world leaders, global leadership, international relations, diplomacy, and all that kind of stuff. And we can kind of go all day long about that, but she's in an advisory capacity. But I do think it kind of raises some kind of ethical dilemma, some questions. My point of view on the value and purpose of a leadership coalition is that it gives you a storehouse of combined knowledge. Think of it like having your own library of expert resources. I said that it also broadens your horizons and gives you access to new information, opportunities, and perspectives. So when you have a coalition of leaders, it's not so much you're not thinking one-dimensional, you're thinking multi-dimensional. It's not even three-dimensional, it's multi-dimensional because you have different perspectives so you're looking at things from multiple angles to understand the full dynamic of everything that's involved. And we can look at it from an organizational standpoint, a global leadership standpoint, political standpoint, any perspective that you want. When you have all of these different people coming together to share information, it's not so much about having yes people, because the one thing you don't want to do is build a network of yes people, because that's just total chaos. Everybody's agreeing, but who's disagreeing? Who's going to give you the alternatives? Who's going to show you the other side of that coin? If everybody's in agreement and nobody's showing you, okay, well, here's the repercussions of that. You know, let's take Flint, Michigan. Them people still don't have proper drinking water. And how long did that go on? Who was looking at the different sides? How many people were involved? How many leaders were involved in those decisions? We can look at a host of examples that we can go through. You know, we can look at BlackBerry. We can look at, you know, Kodak. We can look at a lot of different organizations who failed, who've gone by the wayside. Look at JCPenney and all these stores that are closing. Who, if you have a coalition of leaders, people from different ends of the spectrum, I think even from an industry perspective, you know, having people from different aspects of your industry, even if they're not your direct competition, it's important to have that input so people can see. Dr. Foster is a futurist. You need to have a futurist in your coalition, because that's somebody who's looking down the road that can help you make a decision so that you can know the decision you make today is going to have this kind of impact tomorrow. So that's the value and the purpose of having a coalition, because now you have a storehouse of knowledge and resources that you can tap into, but also it expands your own horizon beyond what you're thinking, because sometimes we can have tunnel vision so much and so hard. And I think what we're seeing in our government right now is everybody got tunnel vision. This is what I want. This is my tunnel vision. And nobody's really branching out, seeing how that is affecting the collective whole. I mean, you can look at the Dakota pipeline. You can look at all these different things, and it's all, you know, it's a matter of, okay, if you have tunnel vision, who are you listening to help, that's going to help expand your horizon so you can see beyond this tunnel vision that you have, to understand this is going to have serious repercussions one way that we already know we're not going to please everybody. That's just not realistic. However, we do want to minimize lives lost. We want to minimize, you know, people losing their livelihood. You know, we can point back to Enron. We can look at SNC-Lavalin in Canada, and 100-year-old organizations that are losing it because of unethical decisions and behaviors and things that they're doing that's affected. People lost their retirement. You're talking about 40 years invested in the company. You don't have retirement. You don't have anything. And so now I'm supposed to be enjoying my retirement years and I don't have anything. So the value that we place on the coalition of leaders that we put together in our lives and our organizations or what have you really helps us in more than in a multitude of ways. The biggest thing is it helps us think multidimensional, and that's way greater than one dimensional and three dimensional.
I agree with that, and it helps to produce discussions that are both diverse as well as inclusive. Diverse because you have multiple perspectives, and inclusive because you're considering the perspective of others and you're looking at the global impact.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I look at what recently happened with United Airlines, you know, and I think it was the Chinese doctor got dragged off of United Airlines. And while the CEO of the company stood behind the decision that was made there at that local airport, I think this is a view of what it looks like to go it alone from a more practical, closer, non-government standpoint. You know, this idea of going it alone is missing maybe the broader picture of how this was going to play out. I think this is a PR nightmare for United right now. Right. And I happen to fly United when I go international. And, you know, even in the back of my mind now, this makes me wonder, well, would I get bumped from an international flight? You know, and so the bigger picture is the issue. When you go it alone, you lose, you narrow that ability to see that. So when I'm looking at this, I'm talking and thinking about the collective brain. When we talk about coalition of leaders, and this is maybe explaining it a little differently than Dr. H was explaining, but similarly, this idea of the collective brain, which is basically collaboration and helping us to move in a particular direction. A coalition adds legitimacy within the broader community when we have this. And going it alone is always going to have some consequence. It could be a big consequence. It could be minute. But the problem is there is always a consequence with going it alone. Even if it's an optic consequence, how does it look to go it alone? United Airlines is dealing with an optics issue now because a gate agent went it alone to drag someone off. And if you look at the broader context of that situation, they dragged a paying customer off to put an employee in that customer's place.
Right.
Which the bigger optics of that is leaving a huge question mark in the broader community. Again, the legitimacy of that is in question in the broader community. And so the collective brain gives a wider perspective, allows views to be projected through different prisms or filters, if you will. And it helps us to ask important questions that otherwise would be avoided, like what if or why are we doing this? And again, if you go back to the United Airlines scenario and you ask the question, what if this gets, recorded on someone's smartphone and sent out into the, into YouTube land or something? What if this goes bad for us? What are the optics of this? Why are we doing this? Is it really important for us to bump a paying customer to put an employee on? So asking those what if questions. This is also, there's also a dividing line that I want to mention is how do we avoid groupthink?
Right.
Dr. H was talking about, we don't need a bunch of yes people, yes men, yes women, whatever. That's groupthink when everyone sits there and the consensus comes real quickly because the leader's, staring down at you and saying, what do you think, guys? And everyone's like, that's groupthink. Instead, we want people in our coalition that are able to say, what if, why, how is this possible? So that's what I think about when I'm looking at the idea of coalition of leadership.
I like the overview, and as you spoke about the optics of coalition, the word that came to my mind is it adds a dimension of accountability. Have those multiple perspectives.
That's right.
What I think about when I think about the purpose of coalitions, I think it's been said. It gives as much information as possible in any given scenario. So one of the interesting things that I like to do in my own leadership that I've kind of grown to is to make effective decisions as quick as possible, so that we can navigate through a problem as quick as possible. I think I found that dragging out decisions can be disruptive to the culture. And so to help navigate that and to help deal with that, a coalition of leaders is extremely helpful to move that needle forward. Now, the other thing that I see as a value in terms of having coalitions is that you're able to leverage a brain trust that is collectively in a room or in a conference call like we're having now, where you can just peel off as much information as needed from such diverse places. And if you're honest as a leader, you honestly have skill sets in one particular lane, maybe two, not more than three, if you're really honest and good about what you're doing. So when you're able to add people who are skilled in other lanes, it diversifies the contribution or the brain trust that's helping make a decision. Now, what I've learned to do in terms of peeling off that value from other people is the more I'm able to insert the brain trust of other people, the more I'm able to learn new information that can help me be more nuanced in my leadership. So I'm not interested in becoming Phillip or Blanche or Latanya. I'm not interested necessarily in learning what you guys know per se. I do know what I bring to the table. And when we're making a collective decision, when we're trying to make a strategic decision, what I do benefit from is being able to think about what Blanche told me in that one meeting that can help me be a little bit more nuanced in the decision I want to make, or what Latanya informed me on in that meeting that's going to help me be a little bit more nuanced. I'm not taking that information to change who I am. I'm not taking that information to adjust the individual that I am, but I am looking to make sure I'm making the best leadership decision as much as possible.
Oh, sorry, my microphone was off. You talk about having people that have skill sets in different lanes or silos, if you want to use that terminology as well. the thing that I write about and talk about, which is counterintuitive to the classical way of teaching management and leadership many times, is that it's okay to have healthy tension.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we're off camera and we have private conversations among ourselves, we aren't always agreeing with things. And you can take that from a broad spectrum of conversations that we have. We don't always agree with each other. But what's interesting is we know pretty much where the other person stands, and we're able to have that healthy tension. And even for myself, and Dr. H is not here right now, she stepped away, but even she and I have had some conversations where she has kind of, you know, using the word accountability, she's kind of called me on the carpet in a collegiate way, you know, about something, and brought to my attention how the optic of that sounded. And that tension creates a decision for me. I can either say, you know, that's her perspective. She has a right to that perspective. And, you know, I don't agree with her and I can go on my way. Or I could say, you know, maybe I need to rethink how I'm talking about this or saying this or acting about that. And so the healthy tension, you know, and I write about that in my book, about how organizations argue and there's this constant tug of war, but that's what creates a better decision or a better widget at the back end of that, because we've argued through the what ifs and whys of this.
Yeah, and I think what I'm drawing from what you're saying, Philip, is that coalitions does not equal, or it should not be equated to a kumbaya session. Coalitions is about partnerships, right? It's about
right.
Who can I work with for this moment, for this season, for this project, for this task, to do something that can advance both of our agendas. And I think, you know, that kind of gets to the point, right? That coalitions are about partnerships. It shouldn't be haphazard. So from a leadership standpoint, when you're making or you're trying to make strong leadership decisions, it should be based upon the value that each partner can bring to the table. Therefore, we have coalition. Now, we could have taken the word coalition out of the topic today and just used partner, whatever floats your boat. But that's what it comes down to. It has to be the right fit in order for the coalition or the partnership to have extreme value for not only now, but going forward.
Can I add something real quick before I go back again? To me, something that's important in having a coalition is commitment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to have a coalition of leaders, you need people who are committed to the vision of the coalition. And the vision, again, can't be groupthink or just yes, but you have to have a vision in mind, a purpose behind pulling that coalition together so that everybody can be on, not necessarily on one accord, but people who are committed to fulfilling that mission and vision, the purpose of why you're coming together in the first place. You may not come together all the time, but if you're going to have a coalition of leaders, you need people who are going to be committed to the foundation, the purpose, the mission and vision of why you're having the coalition in the first place. Otherwise, you're going to be all over the place and you will fall to groupthink. You will fall into a lot of the toxic decisions and toxic things that we see as it relates to building coalitions of leaders and the things that we see that come out of it, because you're going to have a bunch of people who have their own agenda, and that's not the purpose. And so one of the things that's really important with having a coalition of leaders and building your coalition is making sure that you have a mission and a vision. You have a foundation that everybody can agree to and commit to. That means you throw away your agenda for the collective whole. And if you can't do that, this isn't for you.
Yeah, and what I'm reminded of too is that coalitions they're all about relationships.
Right.
Yes.
The maturity of a relationship, you know, and I'm thinking about, you know, Latanya, we have a relationship outside of leadership conversations. We talk about a number of things. And as Philip indicated, I can tolerate criticism from you because of the relationship we have. Philip, same thing with you, right? We talk outside of this. And so, and Blanche, not to leave you out, it's kind of like a first time meeting. But, you know, it is about the relationship. And, you know, as I'm making that statement, what I am also saying is that personally, I value relationships. I think the absence of a relationship can make a coalition kind of frayed. It's difficult to really build upon it when there isn't a one-to-one personal connection that you have at some level with somebody. When that starts to deteriorate, then you start to see the coalition fall to the wayside.
Definitely. As I listen to the comments from you guys, it began to open up the door to segue into my area of expertise, which is coaching and relationship management. And so I listened to Phillip talk about perspectives and healthy tension. And then I listened to you talking about, Bill talking about partnerships, and Latanya talking about commitment. And what came to mind is the emphasis on relationships and entering into or cultivating relationships from the perspective of not the traditional top-down hierarchy, but from a coaching perspective. No matter what your dominant leadership style is, if you supplement that with a coaching style of leadership, that will give you the skills that's necessary to develop those relationships and to manage those relationships from a partner perspective, which is going to then open up the door for increased commitment, open up the door for increased conversation, open up the door even for increased competence, because as you are drawing out what I call the personal best in another person, then you give them permission and also the opportunity to do that for you. These are foundational skill sets upon which to strengthen the coalition so that there is agreement, not necessarily groupthink, but there is a unifying vision and everybody kind of knows their role. These are the areas of my strengths. And I can take these strengths and I can apply them to help us to achieve this goal. This is the area of your strength. And then you see how you can take those strengths and apply it to help us to achieve another goal. When everybody is operating in their lane, when everybody is operating from a partnering perspective instead of a do it my way, command and control perspective, then that is what gives the coalition their strengths. A lot of times people look at, when they're thinking about relationships and the effectiveness of relationships and the connectedness of relationships, a lot of times people want to look at the thing that they have in common. But the strength of a relationship is how you manage the differences within that relationship.
Yep. So let me add to that last statement you made. You said coalitions require people to stay in their lane. Here's the other part of that statement: and trusting your partner to do their job, right? And so it's not about trying to control folk to do something so that you can feel secure in it getting done. I think that's when you start to see leadership burnout, leadership frustration, people getting burned and damaged by the role of leadership. You have to feel comfortable staying in your lane. And let me just say this too, Blanche, right? Coalitions aren't just limited to our businesses doing business together. Coalitions, I think what we were talking about before we started recording, was they exist within organizations, whether it's between a supervisor and an employee, the CEO and his direct staff, or the CEO and the line staff. Coalitions must exist all the way around, and there must be a comfort zone in staying in your lane, right? And trusting that people will do their job as well. But let's segue into the next question. Phillip, I don't know if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one quick thing before we go on the next. When we talk about this coalition of leaders, we usually participate in something because we get something out of it. We can talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatever. The buzzword of the 21st century is happiness. And so, when we talk about happiness, we know that comes from from feeling like we're participating in something or we're being part of something that is bigger than self. And so when we're happy, we're participating more. And that is a cycle. It's like a perpetual engine, if you will. And so, coalitions are not about anger and all this tension and everything, in so much as it's about feeling good about participating in something, even if you don't always get your way in it, if you want to use that term. It's about being involved in something bigger than oneself. So anyhow, I just wanted to add that.
So let's move on to the next conversation here. Sorry about this, guys. Got multiple things going on. Blanche, talk to us about the process you go through in building coalitions. What does that process look like for you? How do you advise your clients as you coach them on building relationships and through coalitions?
Well, the process that I use always begins from the perspective of cultivating a relationship. I always look to see more or less how it's going to fit. I want to make sure that whether the client is an individual or a team or organization, that they benefit. But I also want to make sure that I benefit from it. So one of the more recent projects that I completed is I developed a mentoring program for business women in our local chamber. And as I defined the specifics of that mentoring program, I designed it from the perspective that I didn't want traditional mentors, but I wanted coach mentors. Being that I didn't want mentors to enter into relationships with their proteges from the perspective of using the command and control. Okay, you begin to look like I look, you talk like I talk, you dress like I dress, you do what I did, and then you'll get where I've gone. It's kind of like when you were talking about the coalition earlier, and you were saying, it's not a matter of you trying to look like me or trying to look like Phil or trying to look like Latanya. And so I took the time to meet with each of the mentors, and I shared with them my vision, and I received input from that. And as I allowed them to share their experience and their perspectives about mentoring, that told me if they were a good fit for the program. So there were specific things that I designed into the program and I shared verbally and in training, but more specifically, and I think more importantly, I demonstrated the behavior that I wanted them to then model. And then based upon their response, I could tell those that really embraced the vision and that were really, really excited about it. So it wasn't just this generic application or this generic set of requirements that was set in stone and that dictated that generic responses, but I allowed the individuals to be who they were. And then I was able to determine if who this person really was a good fit for the program.
Got you. Phillip, what about you? How do you build coalitions?
So I was actually having a conversation with one of my coaching clients. I do leadership coaching, and we were actually talking about this from the perspective of building culture on the team. What is culture? The client was asking me today, how do you build culture? What is culture? What does that look like? And they were talking about it, and it really is parallel to this idea of coalition. And so what I said and what I do is I believe in having vision, mission, and purpose. And, if you ever read my book, you'll find it, I sum it up as first principles. And so what are my first principles? And for me to build coalition, I'm constantly going back to the first principles. And I'm using that as my measuring stick for everything I do. So if we have a new idea, I'm asking the group as a whole, or maybe there's only two of us, I'm still asking as a coalition, I'm asking, why are we doing this? What are we doing this for? How does this measure against our first principles or our vision or our mission? And if it doesn't measure, should we be doing this or not? And if we should, does this mean we now have to change what our first principles are because it's in conflict with what we believe? And so these are really hard questions. And so then the coalition of leaders includes by default our first principles or our mission or vision or purpose that we have. So, when I look at a coalition of leaders, I'm not just looking at people. I'm looking at inanimate things that we bring to it as well. Like what we say we stand for has to be one of the leaders in that coalition. Even though it's an inanimate thing, it's a thought. I'm bringing to that the focus of why are we doing this? And so that's how I do that in my context. And because I am also a coach, a trained coach, I do like to talk in that concept. And coaching is truly the essence of bringing out of the person more of themselves. And so when you start asking the whys and the what ifs, you're actually helping them to hone in on what makes them who they are. So,
yep. Latanya, how do you build coalition of leaders?
I have been waiting on this question.
Come on now, bring it.
And the last one. I'm just so excited. But anyway, I see it, to me, it's no different than screening employment applicants. I look for shared values, goals, initiatives, leadership traits, all those things that, you look for in the ideal candidate or applicant to join your organization. It's no different. You have to have and it starts with you having a foundation and knowing what you're looking for. So first you have to know what your why is. What's the purpose of this coalition? Why am I doing this? And two, what are your core beliefs? What is your value statement? What do you believe? All of that kind of stuff has to be in place, like Dr. Foster said. And then you just look for those shared values, those goals, initiatives, leadership traits. Then I look for creativity and innovation. I'm looking for somebody who can go there. It's just like in the movie Hidden Figures, he was like, I need somebody who's already on the moon. I need somebody who's already there. So, because if you're already there, you can help me get there, and if you're already there, you can help me navigate all of the nuances and everything that we're going to go through to get there. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for whether they're pushing the envelope or just going with the current. Because I don't want anybody who's just going with the current. I'm looking for people who are going to push the envelope. I'm not a big risk taker. I'll take some risks, but I'm not a big risk taker. So I need somebody who might be, I might be moderate, but I need somebody who's a risk taker. Because if you're a risk taker, you're a go-getter. So I'm looking for that kind of thing. Do they have a value statement? Because if you say you're a leader and you don't have no value statement, who you leading? How are you leading? That concerns me, because if you don't have a value statement, then I can't see whether we have shared values. So for me, I look at, building a coalition of leaders and networks and people who I want to partner with, who are committed to my mission and vision and what I'm trying to do. I'm looking for people with shared values and people who are going there. I can't have a bunch of people who are timid and afraid. That's okay. You're going to have people like that. We're pulling up together. We're coming up together. But I'm looking for people who are soaring at an altitude that I'm currently at and that I'm trying to get to. Because I'm not happy just staying at this altitude. I want to keep going and keep going and keep going. That's what A+ leaders do. We soar at an altitude that other people can't breathe in. I'm looking for people who can soar at altitudes that other people can't breathe in. Because that's what leaders do.
That's a tweet right there.
Right, I know, right? But that's what I'm looking for, because that's the kind of impact I'm trying to make. And I can't make that impact if I'm at that, like Dr. Foster likes to say, that low-hanging fruit. I don't work with low-hanging fruit. I am not low-hanging fruit. I'm not working with low-hanging, that's just not what I do. And that's not bashing low-hanging fruit, because that's for somebody. That's right. Just not for me, because, and I recognize that when I work with low-hanging fruit, I'm irritated. I'm frustrated. I have no patience and tolerance. So there's no need for me to go there. But I need somebody in my coalition who has a calling to work with low-hanging fruit. Why? Because now we're able to capture so many more. We can do so much more. We can see how, okay, you know what? I may be making a decision that's for to affect people at this altitude where people at this altitude can't breathe. So I need somebody in my coalition that can translate what's happening here to here so these people can get from here to here and vice versa, so it can keep going. So it's a constant building of other leaders and other people to make everybody grow and develop. So when I'm looking for people, I look at it the same way I screen employment applicants and candidates. Are you, everything from appearance, does your appearance align with the vision of where I'm going? I can't, if you got the saggy pants, saggy, sloppy look, that's not gonna work for me because that doesn't align with the brand of what I'm building. So does that say that that's not a market for that? Absolutely. Everybody has their coalition. There's no one size fits all, but I'm looking for alignment and commitment to the overall vision and whatever it is that we're working on. So for me, yeah.
So let me just warn folks who are watching this, you're always going to hear advice on this show. You're going to get perspectives, but I think what you're hearing, you've heard from the other folks, you're hearing what they do. And my guidance to anybody who's trying to figure out how to build coalitions, do what feels comfortable to you. And here's the reason why I say that. So when I did my conference 2 weeks ago, one of the things I've come to grips with is that how I market and how I sell is not necessarily the way that it probably should happen. Right. So there are a lot of people that I know who aren't great leaders, but who can market and sell something, have a bunch of people there and share knowledge about what they think leadership is and is not necessarily accurate or useful. But because they were good at selling and marketing, they got the bodies to come in. They filled up the seats. What I learned about myself is that it takes me a little while to get my engine going when it comes to marketing and sales. And one of the other things I learned about myself that I am embracing is that I tend to do better one-on-one. If I had to do mass marketing, I'm probably not the best. But if it's a one-on-one conversation, we're grabbing coffee, one by one, I can convince people, you probably should come. You probably should buy a ticket. You probably should do A, B, and C. And this is why I'm saying that the guidance you're hearing now about how to build coalitions really should be taken somewhat with a grain of salt, but you need to find out what works for you. Now, what works for me is what I just shared about marketing and selling. I need to get to know people. I need to have coffee with you just to know you as a person on a personal level, right? Just to understand who you are, what makes you tick. Latanya said personal value, your value statement. I just need to know like what's new, what's going on in your life. What's priority right now? Is it work? Is it career? Is it your health? Is it downtime? What makes you tick? Is it your kids? Is it your wife? Because it gives me a sense of how you're operating as an individual. So when we have healthy conflict, I know what to lean on in terms of how to interpret what's going on, how to categorize it, or even how to bring us back to the center. The second thing that I do in terms of building coalitions, I try to find out what your agenda is. Everybody has an agenda. If you say you don't have an agenda, you're lying. Everybody has an agenda. Everybody has something they're trying to get out of it. And let me put people at ease, particularly those who are emerging leaders. It is okay to have an agenda. You need to have an agenda because it helps bring clarity to the relationship. If I know you're trying to accomplish X, what you may not realize is that your X goes very well with my Y and with somebody else's Z. And put that together, we can accomplish so much more by having our agendas come together. But that brings me to my second point. I need to know your agendas so our agendas can overlap. There has to be overlap in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. So once I find that out, then it makes me feel comfortable with the coalition. Here's the third thing, and I think this is challenging for a lot of people, but I understand and I am secure in my own leadership ability. I am confident in terms of what I can do, getting clearer, and maturing in terms of what I can't do, understanding, embracing it, getting out of the lane that doesn't belong to me. With that said, while I'm going through that process and continuously maturing in that process, I am leaning more towards requiring my partners, my coalition partners, to lead me to where you want me to go. And I'm telling this to my staff every day. You are on the front lines doing A, B, and C. You see the needs of the customer. You see ways we can improve our core product or what we do, how the market views us. You know that I'm busy running around, raising money, doing XYZ on behalf of the entire team. And so I'm not as close to the front line as you may be. If you see something that needs to get done to improve how we do business, lead me there. In other words, and this goes back to the topic at hand, which is how do you create a coalition of other leaders? I need you to be a leader in your own right, in your own lane, and tell me why we need to make this strategic decision. Don't expect me to know the answer to everything. Don't expect me to identify gaps in performance or gaps in operations. This is why you're there. And so I'm leaning on you as a coalition partner to direct me, even though I have title, I have rank, I have responsibility. But if you want something to get better, lead me there. Help me make the best decision possible. And for me, building that trust in your skill set is how I move towards building a coalition of leaders. That's my process.
So if I could just sum up what you just said, you build coalitions through empowerment. You're a catalyst leader. You build coalitions through empowerment.
I like that.
I like that as well. And so then I guess I would sum mine up by saying I build coalition through partnership.
That's a great way to segue into the next conversation, right? Because it's one thing to understand a purpose and a value. It's another thing to have a process for building coalitions. But I think what I have observed over my years, people find it difficult to sustain these relationships. People are so excited when new relationships pop up. We're energized, we're ready to go. But how do you keep these coalition relationships going through the good and the bad?
Well, I think that it goes back to what I said earlier, and that is that you're constantly revisiting your why. You're constantly asking the questions, why and what if. You're constantly measuring against your first principles or your mission or goals or vision. To keep going in the right direction, you have to continue to step back and ask why we're doing this. I was listening to the radio this morning as I was taking my kids to school, and they were saying that the statement was, the biggest problem that people have is that we forget too easily. I had a pastor once say that I heard him say, the problem with humans are we leak. So we have to constantly recheck in with why we're doing it, which means that we may have to have a little rah-rah session too. Why are we doing this? Hey, let's do, or whatever the team culture and philosophy and the like feed off of. We have to constantly revisit that. The client I was talking to today, I told him, you may need to do that every meeting that you have with your team. Why are we doing this? Should we be doing that? Does that really measure against what our why is? And so that's how I keep that going.
I'm simple. It's all about relationship building. I personally look for opportunities to serve their agenda, because the more I'm serving them, the more they keep me in mind. I'm constantly, my vision and what I'm trying to do is at the forefront of their mind, because, hey, when you come together, the commitment is we're all committed to helping and serve each other. So if as the leader and the organizer of the coalition, I'm not serving other people, I'm not in line with my own vision or my own purpose. So my biggest thing is I find the biggest way to develop relationships and to build relationships and to keep them going, you have to nurture it just like anything else. And sometimes the best way to nurture it is to show people that you care about what they have going on and not expect something in return. That's the point of serving. So for me to build a relationship, I'm always looking for opportunities to serve whatever your agenda is, because at the end of the day, if your agenda aligns with the coalition, that's what got you in to the coalition, then I've got to look for opportunities to serve you, because now the whole purpose of the coalition is moving forward. We're doing an in kind, we're helping further whatever it is we're trying to do. And so the more resources and the more that I can come towards you, that you're thinking, you know what, wow, Latanya is really, really big on this whole coalition thing. She's real big on this leadership and support thing. She's real big on serving. And, you know, she's always sending me somebody, you know what, let me send somebody her way. I know she's working on X, Y, Z, and the coalition is trying to do so and so and so and so. We're looking for another person in this particular industry. And I ran across this person, boom, now there's a gap in the coalition that can possibly get filled, because now people are seeing that this is real, this is true, and we're not mealy mouthing. We're not a bunch of mealy mouth people just gabbing out, talking about, and just getting together for the sake of getting together to talk about just to say we got a coalition or we got a group, network, commitment, whatever you want to call it. We're not just saying it, but we're doing it. We're doing what's necessary for all of us to win. Mm-hmm. I did a video this morning on my win success formula. Am I willing? Am I going to implement? And is it necessary? That's the whole point. And so if I'm not building that relationship, if I'm not coming together, getting to know them and finding out what their passion is, what drives them, why do they want to commit to this coalition in the first place, and doing what I can to help them implement and do what's necessary to win, then I failed and I'm not doing my part. So, yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, a couple of the strategies that I use to sustain a coalition is through follow-up that focuses on accountability and challenge. You know, just following up with individuals to make sure that they are accomplishing that which they committed to, and also to challenge them. You know, with my clients, I talk to them a lot about achieving their personal best. And then once you reach that goal, to raise the bar. And to keep people from becoming bored or from reaching a plateau or a place where they feel like they have arrived, I just challenge them. And I ask the question, okay, so what's next? Where can we go from here? When you look out on the horizon and you're looking at the undefined, there's excitement and stimulation. Stimulation motivates people to action. And I just try to leverage that.
So one other thing I wanted to mention about being a coalition leader and kind of pulling together a lot of what has been said here. I read a lot, but not only do I read a lot, I also take notes. And, you know, you can't see it from your perspective, but, you know, I've been taking notes the whole time that we've been on this conference here. And interestingly, I have the notes from the last time we met. And so I have this in a spiral ring notebook, and this is just thoughts, leadership thoughts. Some of this is my stuff. Some of this is stuff that I've heard from colleagues in past sessions. But what's interesting is I don't always remember what was said, but I remember something cool was said. And so I thumb through these notebooks sometimes, and some of the most amazing stuff falls out of it. So if you're a leader, not only should you be pouring stuff into yourself, but you should be actively taking notes when you're talking to your colleagues, because there's something golden in there. You know, I said earlier when Dr. H said something, that is a tweet. Right. That is something that should be captured because it's powerful. It's a nugget. And we as leaders, building coalition is also from listening and being and the followers feeling like they're being listened to. And when you take notes, that's a powerful indicator that you're listening and taking in, absorbing what was given to you.
I think it's also important. One of the things I'm writing down as you were talking, Dr. Foster, was it's important to be engaged and to be present and in the moment. That means giving that person undivided attention. That means you're not on your phone, that you're not checking email, you're not sending a message, you're not doing all that, but you're literally engaged. You're asking questions, you're getting involved, you're pulling out information, you're chewing on it. You're trying to. It's like when you're building a leadership coalition and you're really building a foundation of people around you, one of the things is you eat what they say, like nutrition. You take all of that good stuff, all of that information, that nugget, like all of that he has, that's good nutrition, and you chew on it. And you chew. I like this morning, I went through all of some of the tweets that I've been doing on A+ leaders, and you just chew on it. Like you break it down and see what it's on. And one of the things that I said this morning is one of the things that I tweeted about A+ leaders soaring so high at altitudes that other people find trouble breathing at that level. What does that mean? I've got to chew on that. What does that look like? And so that's what A+ leaders do. And you do that. And as you start working on your coalition and building people, you're not just looking for people who are already there. You're looking for people who have the potential to get there. So if you find someone who has the potential to soar at that altitude and to get there, you're really going to engage. You're going to engage with that person. You're going to take in what they say. So what you're saying is, do I understand correctly when you say? Or so your passion, what I'm gathering from this conversation is your passion is, or this is a hot button issue for you. This is a pain point. What you're doing is now you're actively engaged. You're present and in the moment with that person. And like Dr. Foster said, it goes a long way when you can put it all aside. This is your time. I don't care if it's just 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes. It's got to be the best time that you're giving them of their moment, because time is a valuable commodity. You can't get that back. It's expensive. You can't get that back. So for me, if I feel like I'm not worth your time to where you can just stop and engage with me and give me the time that if we make an appointment, I expect that time to be my time. And the same thing, if I got an appointment, my phone is on silent until it's over.
That's right.
Unless I'm using it to find research to say, okay, you know what? You just said something. Do you know about this, and this? I just found it here. That's the only reason. Other than that, how can you serve a person that you don't know, that you're not engaged with, you're not actively focused on, because you're in your phone, you're checking email, you're answering phone calls, you're doing it. It's dishonorable to that person.
This,
very good.
This goes into what I was going to share, and you know, it's feeding off of everything you guys said. I love to do constant check-ins, and my check-ins typically are non-work or non-business related. If I have 1 hour schedule with you, I'm probably spending 30 to 40 minutes of that time talking about non-business stuff, because I need to know what's going on with you, what's new. Every time I call Latanya and Phillip, I mean, we talk about a bunch of other stuff before we talk about business. You know, what's going on with family, what's going on with this, with that. And it's meant to stay connected in a personal way. Because if you're really honest, and if you're really good at your job, and if you're good at being a leader, it really doesn't take long to find a solution to a problem.
Right.
Now, if I was in church right now, I would say, y'all ain't saying nothing to me right now. I need to hear some amens.
Amen.
It does not take a long time to solve problems. When you go back to what we talked about several minutes ago about having the centralized brain trust of a coalition of people together, you can fix a problem pronto. You can become innovative pronto. You can readjust the organizational culture pronto. The brain trust is there, but the connection, that takes time. The other thing I love to do, Phillip talked about it. I love to listen. I love to observe, and I love to ask questions, even within my own team. Now, I can do just about every job on my team. But one of the things that I don't do is try to assert myself in the space of my team. So when they're outperforming, doing their work as the face of our business, of our organization, I don't try to jump in and do their job. And when I'm sitting and observing, I'm not observing as an auditor.
Wow.
Now, if you're watching this, rewind this about 10 seconds. Wow. I, as a leader, do not sit to observe my team as an auditor. That's what you hire auditors to do. I sit to observe them, to learn from them, to watch them in their element, to watch them be good at what they do, to watch them represent our business in its purest sense.
That's good.
The moment I put on an auditor's hat, the moment I put on a funder's hat or lens is the moment I begin to become critical. And like any other person, I can be as critical and demeaning and divisive as anybody else. But when you're a leader, that's not the role you're taking on. It's about figuring out how your people are performing and how this coalition can become strengthened and how I, as a leader, can continue to add value to that coalition.
Wow. Wow. I think that's good. I think it matters sometimes how we approach people and how we engage with them makes a huge impact on how they work with us and how we build that trust. Because at the end of the day, if folks don't trust us, they don't trust us, and it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. You'll have a whole network of folks who ain't gonna do no business with you because they don't trust you. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. Latanya Hughes says that all the time at the Florida Women's Business Center. She's always said people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, how do you know somebody? How do you know if you're going to like them? How do you trust somebody? It takes relationship building. It takes getting to know them. You can't just shove your business card in somebody's face and go like, here, like you dealing cards. We're not playing spades.
Yep.
We're not playing spades. We're not playing cards. This is, I've had people who I don't do business with anymore. I don't talk with them because I'll, schedule an appointment, say, hey, let's get together, go to lunch, have a good time, catch up. And then when you show up, you tell me, I don't understand the purpose of the meeting. Then you don't understand relationship building. You don't understand business. So now I won't do business with you. And I won't recommend anybody for you either, because you don't understand relationship building and how to nurture a relationship. So now I don't know if I can trust you. Do you really have my best interest at heart, or is it about you? Is this one-sided? And the whole point of a coalition and a partnership commitment is to nurture a relationship, to build trust. That's right. If I know you, I don't know if I like you. And even if I like you, if I know you, I don't know if I can trust you. So if I like you, but I don't trust you, I'm not doing business with you. Because at the end of the day, I don't trust you. I can't do business with you.
Right. And without that trust, you don't have permission to enter into that relationship of tension that is needed to move things ahead.
Exactly.
If I don't know you and I don't spend the time with you and I don't ask, how's your family, how's your mom, how's your kids, whatever. And then all I do is I jump in and I'm starting to tell you about your business. I've lost it. I've lost. I'm now lost in that.
So you guys have talked a lot about the process of relationship building, but the key thing that everybody has intimated is the demonstration of showing value.
Right.
Yes.
The number one need in society today is individuals, workers. They want to know that the person they're interacting with, whether it is their boss, a business partner, or a family member, they simply want to know that you care about me. Right. And so when we take the time to listen to somebody, we're demonstrating respect.
Right.
In a way that translates. We're not just saying verbally to them, I respect you, but our actions are demonstrating that. And that's what reinforces our message. So the bottom line, the thing that undergirds the coalition is the ability to demonstrate value.
Yep. So what projects are you working on right now where you are actively building a coalition?
Another good question. I was waiting on. I've actually been working on my Global Mentor Network. It's an initiative to gather experts in different fields and industries that either are or will be committed to helping me develop the next generation of A+ leaders in that particular discipline. Because at the end of the day, an A+ leader understands and recognizes they don't know it all. Like I'm not an expert in construction. I'm not an expert in global trade as it relates to, maybe the stock market or, whatever the case may be. I'm not an expert in film. I'm not an expert in movies. I'm not an expert in DJing and music. I'm not an expert in, automotives, manufacturing. One person just, we ain't Jesus up in here. Mm-hmm. So I'm really been working on looking for experts who will partner with me to help build the next generation of A+ leaders. So I'm building that network and just working on people who, I'm looking for people who are committed, not because they're looking for something out of it, but because they're looking to pour something and see the value in pouring into other people, because that's what mentoring is. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out how to express that dynamic and really get people to buy into the concept so I can really take it out there to people who, you're looking for the next generation of A+ leaders in music, arts and entertainment and manufacturing and finance and economics and all these different aspects, government. All of these different aspects, because we need it. And if we want change, just like you see the quit, be the change you want to see. If we want to see that, then we've got to start pouring that into other people. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm working on right now, is just a global mentor network. So when you think about mentoring, you automatically think the global mentor network, and it's the go-to place to find experts in future studies and find futurists, or find people that you can partner with. And even if you're not sure about a particular industry or a particular something, that's where you can go to find what you need and can really get genuine help, not people who are only going to give you 20 minutes of their time for a whole year, 20 minutes off the year. No, people who are committed, and if necessary will hold your hand through the different stages, the pillars, through the different stages of the mentoring relationship, to make sure that you are now an A+ leader. So now you will take an in turn, now you're part of the Global Mentor Network, and you can find the next A+ leader in your respective discipline and keep it going and keep a cycle. So now we start to see that change. We start to see the content we want to see on television. We start to see this, and we start to see all these different things. We start to see ethical decisions in businesses and in governments and all these different things, because we have people who are committed and they align, their values align with those of the Global Mentor Network. So that's what I'm working on. I don't know what happened to Phillip.
What happened? I'm here.
I don't know what happened with Dr. Clark. He's out.
I'm building coalitions in the thought space of future of work, open organization. What does it mean to lead in the context of empowerment? All the concepts that I meld into the open organization concept. So I'm involved with opensource.com as an ambassador for the open community, and where this is a place where we come from cross disciplines to talk about the 21st century workplace, and what does it look like to have a flat or flatter leaderless or self-led organization. And so there's a lot of tension that goes on there, especially when you get someone from the high-tech world, and let's say myself, who comes from a traditional business world, and we're trying to translate across industries and trying to wrestle with ideas and so forth. So that's one place that we're building a coalition. And the other place, which I'll go into a little bit more in my shameless plug, I'm involved in a community called Lead Open. And so Lead Open is a community where we're having that conversation within the world of business, where we've traversed over from the tech world into traditional business silos, and having this conversation with business leaders on what it means to lead the 21st century workforce. That includes subjects like the millennial piece of the future of working and so forth. So those are some of the areas I'm actively involved in, building coalitions and having these cross-platform conversations with people that don't even think necessarily in the same scape that I do.
Mm.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm investigating different organizations that focus on the impact of neuroscience and neurointelligence in the workplace and relationships.
Wow.
As part of my research, I cultivated what I describe as neurointelligent coaching. And it applies to every area of our lives, and it looks at developing skill sets in cognitive intelligence, emotional intelligence, and social intelligence. And so three of the projects that I'm currently working on is what I call the CIS Network. And the CIS Network is a spinoff of my mentoring program, which is called Stepping into Success. But what I did is I formed a group of mentors into a network where I provide them with training, and I reach out to different experts to address topics of interest to them. But the bottom line is helping them to develop their skill sets and competencies as a leader so that they can point to others. And then another one of my projects is called, it's a mastermind for people in middle management. And the reason I've targeted people in middle management is because typically the executives and the CEOs have access to these types of training programs, whereas the middle manager is the person who is working day to day with the population, who is hands-on. They're the ones that have been confronting with the problems and having to develop the resolutions and then report back to the executives. Executives typically have an outward focus, whereas the middle management is in between and has to have an inner focus. Has to be the person that's in the know, the go-to person. So I'm targeting that particular class of people to develop these skill sets. And then lastly, I have an initiative called People of Promise, at Promise. And this is geared toward the social sector and churches and people of diverse cultures. And it deals with mindset and the perspective in which others view specific populations. And that's one dimension of it. But the other end of it is how we view ourselves and really coming to a place where we begin to look through a lens of promise and see ourselves as God sees us. So those are some of the things, some of the projects that I'm working on. And they all have that foundation of neurointelligence.
Hey Blanche, do you have this book by Dr. Caroline Leaf? She deals with the whole thing about the brain and the mind. She has a whole
She's excellent
about it. I think she has she has a show on TBN or something. I think she does that, and she does an annual conference as well. So when you start talking about, all the research and stuff that you're doing, I've read this book twice.
She's
yes, I do. I have both her books. In fact, when I was doing the research for my book, I tapped into that.
Okay.
And this is why we have a coalition of leaders here.
Right. Because, you start thinking and you start talking and you start thinking about resources and stuff. And it's just like, did you have this book?
I didn't know about that book, so that was helpful to me.
Well, she has that one. Who switched off my brain? Then she has
on your brain.
Okay. So then she has the other one too. Who switched off my brain?
Really? I need to get that one. I need to get that one. This is a good book, Dr. Foster Phillip. She actually, at the end of it, it's a whole exercise where she helps you reprogram your brain.
I'm getting that
it's
one.
A whole exercise where you reprogram your brain according to the way God originally designed it. So she teaches you how to reset your brain.
I need to get that.
I
can always use a reset.
Man, can you tweet out that that link? I've seen a bunch of her videos, but can you tweet out the link to that book? Because I'm gonna access it after the show.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll just share one coalition project I'm working on, and that is relative to the Emerging Leaders Conference. Going into the conference, there were a bunch of nuances that I had to navigate, and some challenges that I had to go through prior to launching the conference and afterwards. There were some major lessons learned, and what I'm looking to do is build a coalition of folks who want to be in this learning community and figure out how to best serve them and how to also generate the resources necessary to keep the coalition going. And so I have a number of partners that have been faithful throughout the process. I'm anticipating more jumping on board. So it is something that's happening. And for those of you who are watching, you know, these coalitions that we're talking about, they mean something unique to us, right? They are special to us. And what I would say to you, if you're watching, is that all the principles that we've shared about the purpose of creating them, why they are important, how to sustain them, how to build them, we're putting these things into practice on a daily basis. I can tell you, my partners for the Emerging Leaders group, I'm constantly checking in with them on non-business related stuff, and it is important to me. But we are way over our time, and this is the part of the show where we talk about our shameless plug. So Blanche, go right ahead and hit us with what you got. What's your shameless plug?
My shameless plug is that I am gearing up to begin my coach certification program that is based off of this book, The Competent Coaching Leader, where you are able to develop those skill sets in neurointelligent coaching. And you can also become certified. So if you're interested, send me an email at dslcoaching. You can also go to my website, www.dslcoaching.com.
Awesome. Dr. Foster, what's new?
All right, shameless plug. As I mentioned earlier, I'm involved with an initiative called Lead Open, and you can check it out on leadopen.info.info, leadopen.info. We're getting ready to do a virtual conference May 11th of this year. I believe early bird pricing on the tickets ends April 19th, so there's only a few days left on that. And so you might want to check that out if you're interested in the 21st century workplace and the future of work. That is certainly an outlet to check out, leadopen.info. I'm going to be one of the keynote speakers for that conference, and I'm also involved in a panel discussion, and I'll be doing a breakout session as well. So not that you need to listen to me the whole time, but there's other great speakers as well that are involved there. I've mentioned several times in this conversation a book that I have called Open Organization. You can find this on Amazon. There are two books called Open Organization. Mine happens to be the one by Dr. Phillip Foster, and not by me, not by Jim Whitehead, who is the author of the other one. He's a friend of mine, and I'm involved with his coalition through opensource.com. Let's see. My website is maximumchange.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at maximumchange. And I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me through my website if you'd like. And I do have a channel on YouTube called Maximum Change TV.
Dr. Hughes.
Dr. Hughes. Y'all know I got like mad books out there. My friend Karen keeps telling me she can't keep up, but anyway, I've got Pillars for Christian Mentoring, Pillars for Public Servants. Especially if you are in public service, you need to get Pillars for Public Servants because you need a mentor. If you are in public office of any kind, I don't care if you're a city manager, whatever, you need a mentor. And
that's
that
right.
will help you. It's practical application of how to walk through the Pillars model for mentoring. My latest book is The A+ Leader, and it is all about the gold standard of leadership and how you can be the best version of yourself possible, soaring at those high altitudes we talked about today. So I also I have a contribution in a book called Ethics, a book on ethics, contemporary applications of the New and Old Testament, of Old and New Testament texts. So I did the chapter talking about God's benevolence in the midst of disobedience, and I did a study on Samson. So you can find me on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. They're all Dr. Latanya Hughes. You can also find me on Instagram, Classified Lady. You can go to my website, www.globalmentorcoach.com. You can email me at info@globalmentorcoach.com. If you just want to talk to me, you can call me at 754-333-0835. So I've got some things working. I'm literally seriously about the Global Mentor Network. So stay tuned for that. But just a lot of different things going on. I'll be presenting at Regent University next month for the roundtables. I'll be talking about A+ leadership and serving and the whole point of self-leadership, Dr. Clark's favorite conversation. A+ leadership really is about self-leadership so that you can actually lead other people effectively. So what else I got going on? Yeah, that's I think that's enough this time.
All righty. And last but not least, you can check me out at elipatrick.com. That's elipatrick.com. Got a bunch of great resources up there for you. We work with churches and nonprofits in the area of leadership development and organizational change. I'm actually just got back the book cover to my doctoral project. So we'll be releasing the doctoral project in its raw form. So it is what it is. If you want to know why I think the way I think, you'll be able to grab it. And just working on a bunch of neat things. We're going to be having free workshops around the New England area for those emerging leaders who are looking to launch their nonprofit or to become a better leader. Free workshops are coming. We're also offering free facilitation and coaching for those who attended the Emerging Leaders Conference. There are benefits to being a part of the coalition.
That's right.
So for those of you in the New England area that are connected to me, certainly hit me up and we'll follow through with that. With that said, Blanche, thank you for joining us today. We hope to have you again in the future. And Dr. Sturtevant was not able to join us today, but I'm sure she'll watch the replay. But for those of you who are watching this, thank you for being a part of this, and we will catch up with you guys later. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.